Joining me on the show this morning is Wisconsin Congressman Bryan Steil. Congressman Steil, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
Congressman, President Biden made his fifth visit to Wisconsin on Friday. Your thoughts on why the president is choosing to visit this key battleground state right now?
Wisconsin is going to be a battleground state for the choice of who's the next president of the United States. But when President Biden comes to Madison, you know he's in a position where he needs to rally his base. Not a terribly heavy lift going to Madison, Wisconsin, driving about a mile between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. You can contrast that with President Trump, who's playing offense. Was with me just over a week ago in Racine, Wisconsin, working to expand our base. The difference here is the policies that we're putting forward help people move forward. President Biden's policies have been clobbering people in the state of Wisconsin for the past 3.5 years, everything from rising prices to the broken U.S.-Mexico border.
And Congressman Steil, on a press call prior to Biden's visit, you said that Democratic candidates like Tammy Baldwin and Peter Barker not attending the president's campaign event is a sign that they do not support the president. Tammy Baldwin already had her own campaign event scheduled today near Green Bay before the president announced he was coming to Madison. How do you know that that is a display of her not supporting the president versus managing her own campaign?
Campaign schedules are always fluid. And when the president of the United States comes, it's an opportunity to stand with the president if you believe that the policies that are being discussed actually move the country forward. We've seen time and again Tammy Baldwin refusing to go and campaign with President Biden across the state of Wisconsin. This has happened time and time again. Why? Because the policies that President Biden, Tammy Baldwin, and other Democrats have put forward over the past 3.5 years have actually clobbered families in the state of Wisconsin. The president and Tammy Baldwin should come with me to a grocery store checkout counter and talk to families who are paying more for grocery prices, where the median mortgage has gone from $1,200 to $2,400, where it's more expensive to buy a car, insure a car, or fill up your car with gas. Wisconsin families have been clobbered by the economic policies of President Biden and Democrats in the Senate and in the House. And we have to get our country back on track. We have an opportunity to do that this November 5th.
Staying on the conversation of Democrats backing President Joe Biden, several Democrats are now calling on the president to drop out of the race. What are your thoughts on this?
That's going to be a decision for the Democrats to ultimately make, but I think it's pretty clear President Biden is incapable of doing the job. Now, more and more people are becoming aware of that, but that's something that we've talked about for a long time. You can see simply in the policies that the president has put forward that it is clobbering people. Take the U.S.-Mexico border, for example. Not only is that impacting border communities, it's impacting families and communities all across the state of Wisconsin. The city of Whitewater, a community of about 15,000 people, has had over about 1,000 migrants move to that community over the past 2.5 years. That's had a significant impact on our first responders and on our school districts. People are getting clobbered by the economic policies, by the policies of President Biden. We have an opportunity to change course this November.
Congressman, we are a little over a week out from the first presidential debate of the election season. Congressman, what were some of your takeaways from that debate?
I think it was a true contrast in policy. So again, prior to the pandemic, real wages were rising. We're rising across the board and for all key demographic groups, actually above the median for blacks, for women's, for veterans, for Asians, for Hispanics. And what we've seen coming out of the pandemic under the policies of President Joe Biden is falling real wages, where everything is 20% more expensive and is harder and harder for families to get by. This is the direct result of the reckless spending under Democratic one-party control. It's a direct result of the energy policies symbolized by the killing of the Keystone XL pipeline on the first day of this administration. And what we have seen from the impact of the U.S.-Mexico border, in particular from the flow of fentanyl from Mexico into the United States, has killed countless people in the state of Wisconsin. Over 1,000 people just last year in the state of Wisconsin died from fentanyl-related overdose death. And so the contrast between the policies of President Biden and President Trump could not be more stark, more clear. And the reason this November should be obvious that we have to make sure we cannot allow President Biden to remain in office for 4 more years.
Congressman Steil, while I have you here, you are also on the campaign trail in this year's election. Your most notable challenger is former Democratic Congressman Peter Barca for the 1st Congressional District. This would be your 4th term representing the district if reelected. How do you feel about your chances in the race?
I feel good about where we are in getting our message out across the district. I've been crisscrossing southeast Wisconsin from Janesville and Beloit to Racine and Kenosha to the southern suburbs of Milwaukee, talking about the policies that we need to put in place to get our country back on track. What do we have to do to bring down the reckless inflation that we've seen under the Biden administration? In particular, controlling costs, reducing red tape, helping workers get back to work and get good and better paying jobs. And further, we need to secure the U.S.-Mexico border. I've been out doing town halls, was in 5 parades over the 4th of July. It's an opportunity to have a conversation with voters about the policies we need to get our country back on track. I'm excited about where we're at. I feel confident as we head into the November election.
Wisconsin Representative Bryan Steil. Representative Steil, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
Up next, why a UW-Madison criminal defense expert calls this week's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity surprising.